Wealthy people, that is the topic I want to discuss today. Wealthy people and their lies. This is it's a quite a quite talked about topic, and I mean I think most people have common sense. I think most people know the lies spoken by those in power and those with wealth. But in this video, I want to get into like some specific things I want to talk about from some people that I've heard from. When it comes to helping the poor, when it comes to decreasing taxes on the wealthy. There's so many different things I've heard, so many different things people have talked to me about. And a common theme that I hear a lot is we shouldn't tax the wealthy because when we increase taxes on wealthy people, then they move their businesses out of the country, they move somewhere else, and that is true. And that's a good claim. Or we shouldn't tax the wealthy because we want them to increase the expansion of their businesses, make their businesses more successful. We don't want to tax wealthy people. We don't want them to leave. We don't want their businesses to fail. I get that. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you don't need to like massively tax the wealthy, but I do think that there should be some incentive to tax wealthy people at least the same amount as you would with upper middle class people. I don't think that like you should tax the wealthy very little. And I mean, in America, the wealthy do get taxed quite a bit more. But I mean, people like Donald Trump, when he refers to the wealthy, he talks about like mega multimillionaires and billionaires and not taxing them much. And I think that's kind of a problem. Now, it's unfortunate that, most taxpayer money, like a huge portion of the, annual government spending budget goes like directly to the military. Like, they don't even put that much into NASA, into cool things like NASA, or into like agricultural landscape development, really awesome stuff. Most of it just goes into boring stuff like the military. They want to build a new airplane for $10 trillion, or some new satellite. They want to launch a bunch of satellites in space for $50 billion. Usually it's boring stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, a lot of taxpayer dollars don't go to very useful stuff in reality. I mean, a massive amount of it goes to health care and stuff. A huge amount of the government budget goes to spending goes to health related stuff, like mental and physical, especially physical health. A massive amount of the budget goes to that. But I mean, nonetheless, despite all that, I think that the wealthy should not have to pay a very insignificant amount of taxes. I think that we should maybe reward wealthy people that move into the country, create some sort of specialized incentive to make them not want to leave. That way we could tax them more. But I think that taxing the ultra wealthy and super wealthy very little is kind of it's kind of stingy, in my opinion, because most of the people in high government obviously have ludicrous amounts of money. And to go beyond that, I've heard the excuse, you can't give poor people money. They'll go and buy drugs, or they'll go spend it on a casino or on alcohol, or they'll just waste it on something else that's not important. And I've heard this claim made, and it is true. A lot of homeless people are either addicted to drugs or they're schizophrenic, and there's not much. And though this sounds cruel, in reality, when it comes to the job world, there's probably not much hope for a schizophrenic person, or for somebody on drugs. Trust me, I know, I know. But nonetheless, there's still a massive maybe minority, maybe majority, I don't know, but there's still a massive amount of homeless people that don't do drugs, that aren't, very mentally ill, other than probably being super depressed because they're living out in the fucking cold or heat all the time. But I mean, besides that, I think most homeless people are probably decent people that can function somewhat well. And in fact, believe it or not, a lot of people can function, with drug addictions. But I don't think that, giving homeless people no money is a good idea. And I've heard it from many people before, especially some Republican people. I've heard say, oh, homeless people are being, they're just being lazy, they're just being um careless, they're just being selfish. They don't want to work, they don't want to support their kids, they don't want to, they choose not to get by on their own or whatever. They want to rely on the system to get by. And I've heard this from many different people before, that homeless people can get by easily, or maybe not easily, but they can get by. They're just choosing not to. So it's not good to give them money. I've heard that before from people. But in reality, it's very hard. And, I've heard people in the past, especially older, like baby boomer people in their like mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, whatever. I've heard people between like their 30s and 40s that were once homeless say, I used to be homeless, but I got out of it. So I think that, yeah, maybe some people are lazy and they're choosing not to get out of homelessness. I've heard a lot of people say that it's a choice to be homeless, or if it's not a choice, it's at least easy to get out of it. But this is coming from people who were born, who were homeless back in the early 80s, 90s, early 2000s, even if it was in the 2010s. Even if somebody was like, oh, I got out of homelessness back in like 2011 or whatever, and it wasn't too hard to do, or it was a challenge, but I wasn't being lazy about it. That was actually a long time ago. You compare even the 2010s, and especially, the 90s, 2000s, decade. You compare decades ago to now, things were way cheaper back then. Things were way easier, way simpler back then. I don't think it takes a genius to see that things are a lot more expensive now. It's a lot harder to get by. And so this stupid fucking excuse that oh, homeless people can't get by, because they're lazy, is a dumb excuse. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have like a master's degree and you're homeless. You're probably not likely to get a job anyway, because like, well, maybe if you have a master's degree, realistically speaking, but even if you have like a bachelor's degree or something, a lot of work experience, a lot of special skills you could take to a job, even then it would probably still be very hard to get a job and get out of homelessness. It really isn't easy from what I've seen. I've talked to a lot of people that were homeless before in recent years, and they've told me it's hard. It's really hard to do. And I don't think that I don't think it's an excuse at all when a homeless person says, "Oh, I can't get out of homelessness." I do think that it probably is nearly impossible for a lot of people. And but this excuse is used by a lot of wealthy people. They want to make excuses for not supporting people. They want to make all these stupid fucking excuses. Oh, I need the money. Oh, I have to have the money to help my business run smoothly. Oh, I need the money to keep the stock market up. I need all this money, that I've invested, so that the stock market can be more stable. Oh, I need this money for my future business plans. I need it. I want it. Can't give it away. Blah blah blah. All these stupid fucking excuses I hear from wealthy people all the time on social media, real life, all the time. All these dumb excuses. Um, You could say, oh, it's the same about homeless people, but I bet you most wealthy people are not homeless. Oh, and I bet you they've never been homeless, is what I meant to say. And by the way, most wealthy people were born into wealth. It's a common lie that's used by wealthy people to make poor people think, oh, maybe I should just work harder. Oh, maybe I should go for more degrees. I should do this and that. You know, it's a common lie, an excuse used by wealthy people, and they say, "Oh, I grew up poor. Oh, I was homeless for 5 years. Oh, I had a brain injury and struggled a lot. Oh, I this, I that, blah blah blah." But in reality, a lot of wealthy people that say they came up from nothing, or they went in debt 20 times to finally make their business successful. These people have always had money. Elon Musk may say, oh, I went in debt several times, but he had plenty of money. He had plenty of money. Well, when he actually was in debt, I believe, but he had plenty of money before he went in debt. He could have, I don't know, done anything. But the point is, he didn't come from nothing. Elon Musk had a very wealthy father. He lived in South Africa, and for those that don't know, South Africa has like I think some of the 1%, most wealthy people in the world. It has a lot of billionaires, or it used to, but South Africa is like slowly falling apart now. So yeah, no, not anymore. But I mean, back in the day, Elon Musk was all like, "Oh, I grew up poor, or we didn't have a whole lot of money. Oh, we were middle class." But no, Elon Musk's father was pretty wealthy, and Jack Doherty, I think I've heard him say, "Oh, I had nothing before, or oh, I had very little. I worked really hard for this." But his parents gave him, a lot of the money he had. They gave him a lot of the money he needed to start up his YouTube career. If you don't have money, it's very hard to build yourself up. It's very hard because you know what I learned, on top of it being hard to become wealthy if you start out poor. It costs money. It's expensive to be poor, believe it or not. If you can, go to like Costco every day and buy like bulk stuff, that technically saves you a lot of money, then, hey, you're in a way, even though it might not make sense, you're actually saving money. You know, wealthy people, if they have to pay $1 million in taxes every year, but they're a mega multi-millionaire. They have like hundreds of millions. Even though that's like 1-2% of their wealth, they still have a lot of income every year. To where like almost any amount, even if they had to pay like 50% of their net or gross income every year, even if they had to pay 50%, they'll have enough to get by. And maybe they won't have a whole lot of money, but even if they had 50%, taxes on their annual income, which is beyond ridiculous. Even then, they would have plenty to get by. And so it's a bullshit excuse used by wealthy people. When it comes to taxes, them complaining about high taxes, them complaining about oh, can't give to poor people, can't give to homeless people. They gotta work hard. There's this excuse made by a lot of wealthy people. Oh, people need to go through hard times. They need to be homeless or poor in order for them to develop a good work ethic and good economic knowledge and blah blah blah. This common excuse that goes around. But if you're like living in fucking India, if you're living in what's the poor area in Delhi, like Uttar or Mumbai or some really poor area in India, it's extremely unlikely that you're even going to be able to like leave the area and sustain any amount of like work or whatever, because you're going to be spending so much on food and water, even if you move. How do I explain it? It's very hard if you grow up in a poor, especially if you're in a poor area and you're poor and you're trying to make it out of there. Making it out of impoverished areas is very hard for people, from what I've heard and from what I've seen. And it's a bullshit excuse, made by wealthy people, when they say, oh, but can't give to poor people. They need to do this and that. They can do it. It's bullshit because most of these wealthy people have never been poor. That's where I'm trying to get at with this. And besides that, most wealthy people, they don't do anything. They don't do anything really with their ludicrous amounts of money other than buying a bunch of excess bullshit. You don't need 100 pieces of you know Louis Vuitton jewelry in your 500 square foot closet, with really expensive designer clothes. You don't need 30 Bugattis and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royce. You don't need 10 vacation homes and like 3 private islands to diddle, younglings and stuff. You don't need multiple private jets. I mean, yeah, people don't need the stuff, and they want the stuff, and maybe it doesn't hurt much for them to spend a little bit of their, I guess, hard-earned money on some expensive stuff. But I mean, the excess amount of material, really doesn't do the world any good. And in my opinion, I think that they could actually benefit massively. I think that in the end they could benefit very, very, very massively by giving to the poor. I think that there are some decent wealthy people in the world that give to the poor, but you have people like Jeff Bezos here, this little fucker that he doesn't, he wants to give his wealth away when he dies. The same as what Warren Buffett said. That's bullshit. It's gonna go to their kids, and their kids are gonna give away maybe like 5% of the total wealth at most, and they're probably not even gonna talk about where they donate their money to. But it's all in the name of taxes. It's all in the name of evading taxes, if anything. They'd only ever give to the poor if it was to evade taxes. And if anything, they'll give to some big organization that launders money. And if not that, it'll just go to some organization that probably doesn't help poor people very much at all. Most of it will just be pocketed by wealthy people. It's like if you donate to a church, the IRS isn't allowed to like snoop around into your income and stuff if you run a church, because religious laws and all that. But basically, that's kind of these very wealthy people kind of behave like churches and stuff, like religious groups. Not talking about where they donate, not talking about what their money goes to. I mean, though it obviously just goes to their super yachts and all that. But I mean, it's a stupid fucking excuse. And any of these people that say, "Oh, I'm gonna donate 50% of my wealth when I die," nah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't fucking think so. And even if they do donate it, miraculously they somehow their kids decide to donate the money when it goes to them. I mean, even if so, it's probably not going to go to anything of great importance. I mean, because Jeff Bezos, what did he do when he donated money? He donated what, like $350,000 to a wildlife preservation or something, and that was one that he went to that he liked or something like that. And I mean, that, by the way, that's like 0.001% of his wealth. So I mean, he basically donated. I mean, at least he donated, but I mean, it was to a wildlife preservation thing. Like, why not people? I mean, if you want a good image, these people always are doing things to try to create a good image. By the way, they might not like show their kids in public because they don't want to like show their kids being spoiled. They might dress poor or dress middle class. Let me show you something to explain to you just how fucked these wealthy people are. So Mark Zuckerberg. Let me show you a good example here. Middle class lifestyle. So let me show you. A lot of wealthy people will pretend to be middle class. I mean, they're not pretending. Everybody knows they're wealthy, but they'll try to put on this persona. I'm one of the good guys. I'm with you guys. I'm wearing minimalistic, middle class clothes, and look at me. I'm driving middle class economy car. Like he had a van or whatever. He was like driving around a van at one point, like a middle class van, which was actually something most people even then couldn't afford. Um, Mark Zuckerberg van. He got like this middle class van, I think. Not a Porsche. It was something different a few years ago. But Mark Zuckerberg pretending to be poor, which he's not pretending. Like we all know he's wealthy, but he's trying to create a good image. Um, it's this whole thing to do with images to try to appease the people, and that's true. Like poor people do dress wealthy. It's interesting that a lot of very wealthy people try to present as poor or middle class to satisfy the masses. But in reality, I think most people aren't really falling for that. And by the way, Warren Buffett does this shit a lot. Warren Buffett pretending to be middle class. I can't. Okay, I might just go here. Let's see. But anyway, besides that, yeah, so he's got that old home, and all that. But he's got a lot of very expensive stuff that he doesn't talk about, and that's the thing. A lot of wealthy people will be like, "Oh, look, I live in this economy class home, and I drive this economy class car," but then they'll have like some like expensive vacation home in the Alps or something, that's like worth like $900 million, and they'll have like billion-dollar cars and artwork and all that. But you know they try to present this image, and if they really, where I was going with this is, if a wealthy person really wants to present as a decent person, as a somewhat decent person with all the money they have, I think that they should, maybe, I don't know, like, do handouts, like, bring food, bring water, bring clothing, and free housing or something like that to poor people, and like a bunch of open jobs that are easy for even people that are like schizophrenic or have Down syndrome, that are homeless, whatever. I think that there's no problem with doing something like that. I think that would massively increase their image, their positive image, rather than them looking like absolute pieces of shit, which they are. But it's like, why are you donating like $900 million to the Cancer Research Institute? They get like billions in donations every year. Why don't you go and donate, stuff, give free housing to the homeless people in your own city, so you don't have to look at them and throw up when you see them. Because I'm sure wealthy people like literally will like throw up or like gag or something if they see a homeless person or poor person. But it's like, you don't want to see that, and you're wealthy. Well, I don't know, maybe help out the poor people a little bit. Don't give to charity to some corrupt organization, or some organization that gets lots of money every year. Why don't you actually like help the people in your local area, or go buy $1 billion of rice and wheat and stuff, bread, clean water, and water purification stuff. Create a bunch of jobs or whatever. Just like take $1 billion and put it into helping like poor people in Africa. You could literally save, I don't know, probably like 10 million kids a year with like $1 billion in food and supplies, and in good infrastructure for them to like work, and like good housing and stuff for them. You could literally become like a near Jesus Christ like saint. I mean, and nobody will worship you, I don't think. Maybe some people, but I mean, you'll be seen as like a saint. You'll be seen as someone like Gandhi. You'll be given like a Nobel Peace Prize. You'll be crowned as like the human version of Jesus. You'll be probably worshipped by many and loved by most people if even put like 5-10% of your total net worth into helping poor people in a foreign country. Most wealthy people don't live in like South America or Africa where a lot of poor people live, or India. There's a lot of wealthy people in India, but it's a huge impoverished population. But I mean, imagine the positive fame, the positive attention you could get, the love you could be showered in. You wouldn't get hate. You wouldn't have to worry about people trying to assassinate you. You wouldn't have to worry about people trying to beat you up in the streets. You wouldn't have to worry about getting shit on Twitter. Well, you'll always get shit on Twitter, right? But you won't have to worry about the what's the word, defamation, the degradation, by the masses if you were to, help poor people. But wealthy people are never going to do this. Now, I predict, here's my prediction, that not one wealthy person will ever do this in their lifetimes. And the poor and the middle class will continue to hate the wealthy, especially the ultra wealthy, for the rest of my life at least. I don't think we'll ever see anybody in my lifetime that's anything close to Christ-like at all. That would give away their massive abundance of wealth and material, for to help people in need. You'll never see that. You'll never see it. If anything at all, I see more poor people than middle class people, and especially far, far, far more poor people than the wealthy give to the homeless. Poor people I see giving to the homeless, and lower and middle class I see giving to the homeless more than the upper middle class or the upper class itself. If anything, poor people are respectable. Poor people help homeless people. Poor people are far superior, from a moral sense, and trustworthy than any wealthy person in my eyes.